you have completed previous two Java method class. Now today our problem statement is that we have to create max and mean between two given number, and we have to create a method which will basically return maximum of two number. Again we will create another method which will return minimum between two numbers, and finally we have to print the max number and min number. So maximum number I will create here and I will show you, and minimum number functions or method you have to create as an assignment. So open your Eclipse IDE. I have already opened, and max min calculator is my class name which is under com.demo.method package. Now if I double click here, so you can see here that I have already created two variable a and b of integer type, and with the help of scanner class I am trying to collect first number and second number under a and b variable. Now our aim is to find out the maximum number between this a and b. Now we will create a function which will basically give us the maximum number between these two, and we will create this function or method just after this main method. So you can see here our main method start here and end here. So after this line number 17 we can create a method like find max number. Now we know the syntax. First we have to create a access modifier. So our access modifier, let's say public, then this find max number method should return the maximum number, and definitely this maximum number should be a integer type, so we can create a return type as integer. Now our find max number method we have to define like this way, and our method start here and end here. So under this method we have to write our logic. Before that we have to pass two value, so that based on that two value we can create this logic, right? So we can create two integer variable here like int num1 and num2. This is basically number 1 and this is number 2. Now we can create a conditional operator logic to find out the maximum and minimum between these two. So this is our conditional operator where I am creating that num1 greater than num2. If num1 greater than num2, so it will return num1, else num2. So this way we can easily find out the maximum number between num1 and num2. Now we have to collect that one in an integer variable. So we can create an integer variable, let's say max val, like this way, and we can terminate this using semicolon. So these operations basically give the maximum one between number 1 and number 2, and that will be stored under this max val. Now you can see here we are getting some compilations error because it's a integer type method and it is expecting some return of integer type value. So we know that this max value basically collected based on this logic, and here we can return this max value as a return value for this method. So to do that we have to write return, and then we will return the value that is collected under maxval variable. So now you can see here our method definitions is done. Now it's time to call this method from this main method. So we have already collected two value of first number and second number under a and b variable, right? So here we can call this method, but if we don't want to create any instance of this max min calculator to call this find max number method, so we have to use another keyword that we already discussed in our last class, that is static. So if we use this static keyword here, that means we don't need to create any instance of this max min calculator class to call this method. Now under this main method we can call this find max number method by just typing this one, and definitely this is expecting two value, that is basically number 1 and number 2. So we have already collected the two value, that is first number and second number under a and b variable. So we simply pass the value from here a then b. So this means we are actually calling find max and number method with two value a and b, and this max number method actually calculate this a and b value that will be stored under number 1 and number 2, and based on this condition they basically return the maximum value between these two, that is basically a and b. Now we can say this method basically return the maximum between a and b. So we can also store that one in a variable, let's say c. So now under this C variable we are actually getting the maximum number between A and B. If A is greater than, then A will be stored under C. If B is greater than A, then B will be stored under C. Now we can create a system.out.println statement, and we can say the maximum number is, then we can use a plus operator here to concat, and here under C we know that the maximum between A and B is stored, so we can simply type C here. So this is our method definitions, and from here we are actually calling this method, and once we call this method with two parameter A and B, that is basically go here, and this A and B will be stored under number 1 and number 2, and finally using this conditional operator we are trying to find out which is the maximum between this number 1 and number 2, and the maximum number will be collected under this max value, which will be returned as a result of this method. So that is basically coming here. So this is nothing but in between A and B, which is the max one, that will be then collected under C variable, and we are trying to print that C value with a message that this is the maximum number. Now you can save it using Ctrl S. Now if I double click here and run this program by click on this button, so you can see here that system will ask me enter first number. So let's, the first number is greater than and second number is less than. If I enter here, so you can see here we can get the result, the max number is 11. So this way you can create a method to calculate the maximum number between two number, and this is our method definitions, and from here we can call this method. Now as we discussed, just create the same class, same method, and then another method you have to include in your class, which is basically take again the two number and return you the minimum number, and finally you have to print that minimum number. So this is your assignment.
I believe this video has helped you to understand about the topic. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe, click on the bell notifications and select all so that you don't miss any video from this channel.